My name is Chris Benson, and I am a student in Dr. Merrill's EDU 290 Technology and Education at CMU. The title of my presentation is Earth's Evolution, Using Geology to Understand Our Planet's History. First and foremost, geology is about figuring out how the Earth came to be and continues to change today. My presentation has to do with how geology developed as a field of study and how geology helps us understand how the Earth works. It's important to keep in mind that geology means study of the Earth. Just like other sciences, such as biology, the quality of geological research depends on scientists making careful, consistent observations about the world. Relatively speaking, geology is a young science. Like other scientists, geologists base what they know about the world on the knowledge of cause-effect relationships brought on by unchanging natural laws. One good example of a scientist making careful observations is Newton and his apple. While early geologists did not have the scientific method as we understand today, they still used methods similar to those of the modern scientific method. These include making careful observations and using analogies between observed phenomena and other natural processes already understood. The modern field of geology is based on important work done by early natural scientists. Without these early workers, geology as a scientific study would have developed very differently. One of these important early workers was Nicholas Steno. Steno observed what happened geologically after flooding in Italy. His most important contribution is the principle of stratigraphic succession, or principle of superposition. The principle of superposition states that the lowest rocks in a sequence are the oldest, while the highest rocks are those most recently formed. Another important early geologist, James Hutton, made many observations about the Earth that convinced him it was immeasurably old. For example, he realized that scratches in Scottish rocks were like those made by glaciers in the Alps, but that Scottish glacial scratching happened a long time ago. For Hutton, this concept of deep time was reinforced by observations of rock units that cross-cut or interrupted other rocks. Based on his observations, Hutton concluded that these relationships among rock units recorded geological events representing very long time periods. Charles Lyell, who agreed with Hutton that natural forces work to shape Earth over a long time, popularized Hutton's ideas about geology and the history of the Earth. As well, Lyell was among the first to refine the concept of uniformitarianism, applying it specifically to geology. William Smith was another important early geologist. Smith focused on fossils, noticing that different types of fossils were present in different rocks in varying numbers. Based on these pattern differences in fossils, Smith used fossils to put rocks in vertical order relative to one another. Smith refined this technique to develop an important relative dating tool known by geologists as the principle of fossil succession. Based on his own and others' works, Charles Lyell proposed and popularized the principle of uniformitarianism. This was an important step because it allowed geologists to extend interpretations of the rock record back into the very distant past. The principle of uniformitarianism is very important because it provides a foundation on which geologists can base their interpretations of very old and young rocks. In other words, uniformitarianism allows geologists to put what happened on Earth in the past in a context of what is happening in the natural world today. Understanding the order in which events and processes happen is the first step in explaining how these processes work. So, for example, by using Steno's principle of superposition, geologists can put rock units in order as a first step toward explaining those rocks. The technique of relative dating of rocks is based to a great degree on Steno's work on sediment layers and on Smith's work with fossils and rock beds. While relative dating is a powerful tool for figuring out rocks, this technique cannot assign rocks to a specific time period. Absolute dating, based in part on the relative number of different radioactive isotopes in rocks under study, is another technique that can be used to define exactly when some geological events occurred in the past. Like relative dating, this technique helps geologists understand how Earth processes work. This presentation has given an overview of how geologists work to tell the story of the Earth. Early geologists tended to focus on the order of the story, or the what happened when. Building on the work of these early scientists, modern geologists continue to fill in gaps in the story while also focusing on how Earth processes work and on relationships among these processes. Thank you very much.